Good morning, and welcome to All People's Church, Unitarian Universalist. Whether you're here out of curiosity, out of habit, out of friendship, or as a long-term commitment, we're happy to see you. I'm Mary Ann Clark, your co-celebrant for today. In the pulpit is our guest speaker, Kendra Weddle. Kendra is a scholar in residence at the North Haven United Methodist Church in Dallas and is a frequent celebrant here at All Peoples. Our theme for the month of April is Embracing Possibility. We're especially pleased to welcome those who have not been here before. For more information about us, please utilize the QR code found on the back of the order of service for our social media platforms. If you haven't yet done so, please sign in at the visitors table by the front door where you can be placed on our mailing list for our weekly newsletter, our weekly emails and our monthly newsletter. At the end of the service, please stay and join us for coffee and conversation in the library at the back of the sanctuary. Please settle comfortably now for our musical prelude.
Our call to worship this morning is called Don't Hesitate by Mary Oliver. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happens better than all of the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you'll notice it in the instance when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb.
We now invite you to rise in body or spirit for the chalice lighting, the opening hymn, and our spoken affirmation. Our chalice lighting word comes from Reverend Gospel. We light this flame can always be struck, and very little is inevitable. Most of it is mystery and magnificence of God, which makes new and yet to be imagined worlds always to wait. Which means that a door has already swung wide, with possibility waiting on the threshold, ready to pull us through. Please now, in joining our Hymn of the Month for April, in the Teal book, number 1026, of Every Woman in the World. Please join now in reciting our affirmation. The words are in the order of service and are also projected on the screens. Love is the doctrine of this church.
The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus we covenant with one another.
Please be seated. The young and the young in heart are now invited to come forward for our time for all ages here at the front of the chancel.
I think Ronan. Hi, Ronan. Do you want to join us? Oh, that's great. You're coming. Yay. It's so nice to see both of you. You did such a nice job lighting the candle this morning. Yeah. So I'm curious, do either of you have a pet? 2 dogs and 4 cats. Oh, I love that. Do you have a favorite one? You do? Who's your favorite? Oh, that's so fun. But you love them all. Exactly. So I brought a picture of my pet. Yeah. Really? Oh, that's fun. Yeah, this is Rue. Yeah, this is Rue. And I've had Rue for, maybe 8 years or so. So she's maybe 11, something like that. I got her when they thought she was maybe 3. She's a rescue dog. I brought you this picture because she kind of has a funny look on her face. What do you think she's thinking? Yeah. She's thinking about dog food. Yeah, that's a very good guess. Yeah, that's pretty much all they think about, right? Yeah, I think she's kind of cute too. So one of the things I was doing at this point, because I wanted to take her picture, was I asked her to stay. And do you see how she's kind of giving me the side eye? That's kind of what she thinks about stay. She's not all that thrilled about it, but I did manage to get her to stay there long enough to get her picture. Yeah. Sometimes it's kind of hard for us to stay too, isn't it? Do you find that to be true? Like often we would rather go do something else and instead we kind of know we need to stay. Yeah, I feel like that too. But sometimes there are good reasons for us to stay. Can you think of a good reason for, like sometimes when you need to, so you don't get lost, right? Or hurt, right? Any reason for stay? And sometimes when someone asks us to stay, it's because they might know something we don't know. And so that's probably good because we don't always know everything we need to know. So anyway, that was one of the things I was going to talk with the adults about today is kind of the challenge of staying. So I thought maybe we could kind of think about that too. So when you think about staying today, maybe you can remember my dog Rue and that she did manage to stay for a little bit, long enough to get this picture. I did print it. Yeah. So when you go home today, give your animals an extra love for me, will you? That sounds great. Yeah. Well, thank you. It was nice to see you today.
Our offertory words were written by Ellen Johnson Fay. For the gifts which we received and the gifts which we ourselves are, may we be truly grateful. May we be committed to using these gifts to make a difference in the world, to increase love and justice, to decrease hatred and oppression, to expand the beloved community, to share and to keep sharing. Your contributions will benefit the missions of our church, as well as an outreach to the larger community by sharing the undesignated cash offerings. We do this on a quarterly basis for a non-profit or charitable organization each week. Our current Share the Plate recipient is the Underground. If you prefer, donations can be made using the QR code that is on the back of the order of service. The offering will now be gratefully received. Would the ushers please come forward?
Thank you, Misha. It was so beautiful. So our reading this morning is a Hindu story. And this particular rendition comes from the book, Welcome to the Wisdom of the World's Traditions. And the story goes like this. Once upon a time, high up in the Himalayas, there lived a tribe of 80,000 monkeys, ruled over by a monkey king. A tree grew in the heart of the valley where they lived by the bank of the river, and in the spring the scent of its white blossoms sweetened the air. The shade of its branches brought a crop of the sweetest and largest fruits of all of India. The monkeys rejoiced in the good fortune that provided such a precious gift for them. But the great king warned them that if others came to hear about this tree and its fruit, they would want it for themselves, and they would drive the monkeys away. He feared the men from the cities especially. The monkeys needed to take care that no fruit ever fell into their hands. One spring, in the course of culling the tree in preparation for harvesting the fruit, the monkeys missed a flower. By autumn, the wizened stem hung heavy with the weight of the fruit on it. And then suddenly the fruit fell into the water and tumbled along on the current in the wide waters of the plain. And there, close to the favorite bathing place of King Brahmadatta, a group of fishermen caught it in their nets. They marveled at the size of the fruit, so they brought it to the king. And the taste delighted the king Brahmadatta, and he decreed that the source of this fruit must be found. Within days, the searchers found the tree, and it was still laden with fruit. But a host of monkeys had found it first, and to the horror of the king, they were feeding on it. It was, he thought, such a waste that those fruits should be fed by that the monkeys would eat the fruit. So King Brahmadatta decided there must be only one solution. The next day, they would kill the monkeys so that they would never return to the tree. Well, the monkeys heard about the plot for the next day's slaughter, and in great agitation, they went to their king and laid it all before him. "We cannot escape," they said. "The distance between our tree and the tree across the stream is too far for us to leap. We are all going to die." For some time, the king of the monkeys pondered their plight. Then he made his plan. "I am great-bodied, long and strong," said the king of the monkeys. "Tomorrow, shoes shall be useful." At dawn, the Monkey King made a mighty leap from the fruit tree on this side of the river to the tree that grew on the opposite side of the bank. And on the trunk of the first tree, he wound a rope of vine equal in length to his mighty leap. The other end he tied to his ankle. And again he gathered his strength and he leaped out into space, his long arms reaching for a branch of the fruit tree across the stream. They caught. But as they did, the Monkey King realized that the vine rope itself would not be long enough to bridge the gap between the two trees. He had forgotten to allow for the extra length that would be needed to tie the rope to the tree opposite, as well as to his ankle. Now there was only one way to rescue the tribe. Hanging there in the space, the king ordered his subjects to run along the vine rope to the bridge of his back, and from there, secure in the tree to save themselves. For hours he hung there, as 80,000 monkeys raced along him until his mighty back could no longer take the strain. As the last of his subjects reached safety, his back failed, and the king fell to the ground, limp and broken and in great pain. King Brahmadatta had watched the escape and the great feat of the Monkey King. Now he raced to him. You have given your life and all of your strength to save your people, he said. I had to do whatever I could to save them, the Monkey King said. My joy is that they are all safe. And now I can rest. You see, Brahmadatta, it is love and not power that makes a king great. Let's sing together hymn number 119, Once to Every Soul and Nation. Please stand as you are able.
Please be seated. At this time in our service, we pause to honor and give time and attention to those things most important to us. We gather here for healing and for peace in our hearts and in the world, and honor our time together with the shared stories and news from the congregation. Each week, there's a journal outside the entrance to the sanctuary where you can write a message of memory or hope. We honor these messages by lighting 3 candles here next to our chalice. Also, at any time during our service, you are welcome to come forward and light a candle in our meditation center here at the side of the chancel. Our meditation words are from the Reverend Lynn Cox. There is actually something in the book. Spring is here, and we want to urge everyone to think about getting a community garden plot. It's from Joel. Spirit of life, ever adapting and renewing, we come together this morning with yearnings that do not match. We yearn for stability, for even one moment of feeling like we know what is going on, for the ability to predict and prepare for what is coming next. Yet we also yearn for change. We ache for a world that turns aside from racism, violence, dehumanization, and disregard for suffering. We pray for a change in the illness, grief, isolation, incarceration, and vulnerability of our loved ones. We reach for connections that will remind us that we are worthy as we are, and we reach for connections that will help us to become our best selves. Source of wonder, move us to express and live in gratitude for the beauty of this world, for the loving people in our lives, and for this day of possibility. Let us now pause for a few moments of quiet meditation to uphold and uplift the sorrows and celebrations, both spoken and unspoken, among us. And then Misha will lift our hearts with music.
Spring flowers, including Texas's beloved bluebonnets, have been a gift this spring, haven't they? After a too dry and warm winter, I feared they wouldn't show up. And then that surprising late winter rain, and they burst on the scene, flitting about in blues and purples. Other wildflowers too, with their whites and pinks, even some reds, yellows here and there. I live near a freeway, and the Meridian and the problems that will not go away with a good night's sleep, or even a fortunate turn or two. They are living in realities that will be there for some time to come, and in each case, it's pretty unclear how things are going to turn out. And of course, these individual realities are also reflected in the dire reality of our world. And it's hard to see how any of this turns out well for any of us, nor for the generations who will inhabit this space after us. So it kind of takes a good amount of imagination and wisdom literature and a determination to see the glass half full, just in order to garner the chutzpah to feel positive. In other words, to embrace possibility. But we've been here before. The Reverend Cameron Trimble writes about the truth in this being here before in his article entitled, "When the World is Burning, Stay." History tells us, he writes, that moments like this are not new. In the 6th century, as the Roman Empire disintegrated, Saint Benedict of Nursia did not try to save the empire. He also did not abandon the world. Instead, he gathered people into a way of life that was rooted in stability, in shared labor, prayer, and caring for the vulnerable. The monasteries that followed did not prevent collapse, but they preserved humanity within them. They became places where learning survived, where the poor were fed, where dignity was practiced, and where power had lost its moral compass. They did not do this by being loud or being dominant. They did it by staying. And this matters for us too now. For we too are living through a time when many are tempted to withdraw, to numb themselves, or to believe that nothing they will do matters. But this Benedictine wisdom insists otherwise. It teaches us that how to live in the midst of breakdown can shape what becomes possible afterward. When we choose to stay human, when we keep telling the truth, keep caring for one another, protecting the vulnerable, practicing restraint instead of revenge, we become carriers of a different future, even if we never see its fullness. Choosing to stay human. This is the possibility I think we are called to embrace. And so, of course, we turn to the wisdom distilled to us through the story of 80,000 monkeys high in the Himalayas and their monkey king. My joy is that they are all safe, the monkey king says, after he is broken from their ceaseless trotting over his back all day long. Now I can rest, you see. It is love, not power, that makes a king great. Love, not power. Love, of course, it's so easily said, and you know, it's being made so prolific with swags and memes. Love wins. Love means love. The ubiquitous sign. But what does that actually mean? I'm struck by something that Krista Tippett observes in her book, Becoming Wise, when she says that she hears love as a longing for common life. But interestingly, she contextualizes this longing for common life with something else that she says is bubbling up in our collective consciousness. And that bubbling up she identifies as grief. Love being this longing for common life in the midst of grief. There's a widespread awareness, she says, that the healing stories that we've told ourselves collectively are far from complete. That we continue to be bewildered by the lack of answers, by the inability to know how to change our relationships with strangers who are our neighbors, and with our neighbors and family and friends who are also our strangers. So perhaps it's helpful for us to put some skin onto this idea of love. In other words, let's begin by identifying that love is never disembodied. It's never found or experienced apart from life, apart from living. As former Episcopal Bishop John Shelby Spong writes in his book, Unbelievable, love passes through us. It neither originates nor terminates with us. We receive it only by having received it and then pass it on. Love does not keep to be consumed like a leftover. It can't be preserved. It must be shared or it will die. So love opens each of us to the dimension of human experience that is transcendent. Love relates to us something that is real, something that we can neither create nor destroy. Spong goes on to explain that individualism, that human development, which we've for so long extolled, begins to look like a mirage, something perceived at the edges of life, not at its depths. Oneness, not separateness, not individualism, appears to be the deeper truth. Let me say that again. Oneness, not separateness, not individualism, appears to be the deeper truth. And we can see this in our wisdom story today, where the monkeys were in a seemingly impossible situation. Certain death and destruction was going to be their fate. There was no way around it. Their secret tree was no longer a secret. Abundance and plenty had become scarcity. And when others knew of their bounty, loss was the only subsequent possibility. And then, not to be missed in this story, they messed up. Their king told them to be careful when collecting the fruit. If they left any flower behind, the natural world's processes would result in others finding out what they had. And when the others learned of it, of what they were missing, no doubt they took quick action. They wanted the goods too. And it only took days, just a few short hours, before they determined that they should get it for themselves. Turns out selfish desire is quite a universal motivator, huh? When the monkeys realized what had happened, well, devastation and despair took hold, of course. The monkeys heard the plot for the next day's slaughter, and so in agitation, they go to their king. "We can't escape," they cried. "We shall all die." But the monkeys, well, they hadn't quite counted on the love of their king, had they? They hadn't realized the power of possibility, the alchemy of another way forward when the motivation was not control or power over, but instead the steady, slow work of embodied love. The back-breaking but inspiring act of courageous love. But first, before the wise king arrived at this kind of love, you noticed what he did? For some time he pondered their plight. Then he made a plan. I am great-bodied and long and strong, and tomorrow shoes will be useful. I don't know what role the shoes played in their rescue. I pondered that. Maybe it had to do with the idea of walking being their path of liberation. That is a recurring theme through many of the wisdom writings. To achieve freedom, we must cooperate with spirit, and it's a movement from here to there, whether that's physically or emotionally, spiritually, rationally, all of the above. We have to be willing to listen to that inner voice and then respond, putting one foot in front of the other. I also find it interesting in our story for today that the king's original plan had a flaw. A big, glaring miscalculation. Not enough rope. And it was a problem of such gargantuan proportions that the only way it could be rectified was for the king to take responsibility, to literally bear the load, a load that broke his back. And despite what it cost, his joy was complete because his motivation had been love. I don't know about you, but this leadership style of the Monkey King is so far removed from the kind of leadership style we've been accustomed to, particularly in our state and in our national politics, that it's a bit of a challenge to imagine, even how to imagine what that would be like. But for us, in our time and place, maybe it's helpful for us to kind of step back and kind of recognize that almost every vision of our existence has become to be evaluated in terms of economics, right? When we talk about labor, education, immigration, refugees, prisons, poverty, healthcare, all of it, what does it cost? Who pays for it? If I don't get mine, should anyone else get theirs? And so again, Krista Tippett invites us to imagine how we might rename these issues if we started and ended with what is at stake in human terms. What if our evaluations were driven by love and not economics? How, for example, might we treat strangers and the hungry? How might we reimagine health in a world of ever longer lives? How might we nurture our children's minds and equip them for the world that they will navigate? When I taught ethics at Texas Wesleyan University, we learned about social compact theories. You know, the political philosophy that governments derive their legitimacy from the voluntary consent of the governed, who agree to limit their natural freedoms in exchange for protection of rights. And one of those theories that we explored was created by Martha Nussbaum, who's a philosopher who was critical of Hobbes and Locke and Rawls, because she saw that they failed to provide justice for those with disabilities and those across national borders. So instead, she favored an approach that takes seriously the real flourishing of all people and of all aspects of their lives, including the physical and the mental and the emotional and the spiritual. And such an insight then requires us to do a radical reimagining of our society. Thinking about what does it take for humanity to flourish, instead of thinking about the almighty dollar. And so as a class, we would begin to imagine, well, what might this mean, for example, for our parks and our natural spaces? And those suddenly rose up in place of prominence. We should give greater weight to this. And government incentives for healthy initiatives became more important. Funding education no longer came from a place of scarcity, but instead valued as the lasting resource that it is. You get it, the list can go on and on. Motivated by love would mean our entire social system would be turned upside down. One of the most devastating mindsets to have is one where we believe ourselves to be powerless. There's nothing we can do, nothing we can change. It's a place of despair and hopelessness. But it seems to me that if we're willing to look around, to study the past, to lean into these wisdom traditions, we will find there is always more power than we think is possible. The key is that it comes when people are willing to come together and stay. Not stay silent, but be where we are planted and be with others who are planted here too. The insight from St. Benedict of Nursia when the world was crumbling around him was to stay. Not simply to witness the destruction, but to create community within it. And what became of that? His insights and his keys to cultivating lifelong connections continue to exist all over the world to witness to the longevity of possibility. And there's also the Monkey King, whose embodied love shines as an example of the power of possibility, of knowing how to make up for insufficient resources by standing in the gap, learning that our willingness to be sources of liberation can save and inspire long after we're gone. John Lewis, the congressman from Georgia who taught us so much about how to live and to love, asked a what-if question that perhaps puts a fine point on this challenge of embracing possibility, of actually reshaping society to value flourishing, not economics, well-being, not consumerism, the good life, not the material life. What if the beloved community were already a reality, the true reality, and we simply need to embody it until everyone else can see it? May we embrace that possibility until it is so. Amen. Let's stand and sing together our closing hymn. It's the Fire of Commitment, number 1028 in the Teal Book.
Our chalice extinguishing closing words are from the Reverend Tandy Rogers. May possibility take root where certainty once stood. May curiosity lead the way. May you loosen your grip, open your hands, and find that something unexpected.
I invite you to stick around for a little while for some conversation and coffee. And now receive the benediction. When we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. Go in peace, my friends. Amen.